Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being truly well-informed. Today, we're taking a deep dive into one of the most critical parts of flying, the takeoff. And this isn't just about ticking boxes on a checklist. It's more about developing what one expert calls a fail-safe mindset.
Yeah, and our guide today is Captain Ashutosh Chopra's The Commercial Pilot's Handbook. We're digging into Chapter-6, which is just called Takeoff.
Okay.
And Captain Chopra really focuses on, airmanship, those ingrained habits pilots need for safety. He's very clear this is to complement official training manuals, not replace them.
Right. It's additional wisdom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we'll use the Boeing 737 sometimes as a reference just for examples, but the principles, they're pretty generic. We're assuming you listening have a basic grasp of things like aerodynamics, weather minima, performance calcs, that sort of thing.
Got it. So our mission here is to really pull out Captain Chopra's practical advice. How do you execute a good takeoff, the kind where you've controlled everything you possibly can to manage threats and ensure safety? Okay, so let's unpack this. This fail-safe idea and focusing on ingrained habits rather than just, rote procedures. What does fail-safe actually mean for a takeoff? Why the emphasis?
Well, fail-safe in this context means you're constantly thinking ahead, actively looking for threats and figuring out how to mitigate them before they happen.
Like what kind of threats?
Oh, things like having to reject the takeoff suddenly, or losing sight of the runway markings in bad weather, or the big one, an engine failure just after V1.
Ah, V1, the decision speed.
Exactly. That point of no return, almost.
Yeah.
Captain Chopra sees managing all this as airmanship. It's not just procedure, it's skill, knowledge, judgment, all rolled into habits that become second nature, almost automatic.
That makes sense. And this idea, this proactive, fail-safe thinking, it's not just for aviation, is it? Seems like it applies much more broadly.
Oh, absolutely. The core idea, developing good habits, anticipating problems, that's powerful anywhere. Managing a complex project, giving a major presentation, even, navigating personal challenges, that discipline helps hugely.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so let's get into the specifics. Captain Chopra lists a lot of critical pre-takeoff actions. He seems convinced these are key to preventing errors.
He really hammers this point home. Preparation is everything.
One thing that caught my eye was his strategy on flap settings. It sounded a bit backwards at first.
Yeah, I can seem that way. He advises that unless you're facing really demanding terrain or high-density altitude situations, thin air using a larger flap setting might actually be the better, safer choice.
Okay, why? What are the benefits?
Well, several things. You get more tail clearance, which is good, better performance on the ground roll, and importantly, much better performance if you have to reject the takeoff right at V1.
Ah, okay.
Plus, it helps with clearing obstacles that are close to the runway. Now, it's true, the extra drag means it doesn't help as much for obstacles further out because your climb rate is a bit lower.
Right.
But for those immediate critical phases, he argues the benefits often outweigh that.
Really?
It's about optimizing for the worst possibilities right at the start.
Interesting trade-off. Now, he's also really precise about when to do the before takeoff checklist. Says you hit that the moment you spot the lineup lines or lights. Why that exact timing?
It's all about preventing being rushed or forgetting things under pressure. It's a human factors thing.
How so?
Well, think about it. You might get a certain clearance for an immediate takeoff. Or maybe you're distracted because the cabin secure call hasn't come through yet.
Okay.
By linking the start of the checklist to a clear visual cue, seeing those lines, you build a really strong trigger. It helps stop you from forgetting or messing it up when things get busy. It's clever, really.
It is. And here's another detail, maybe less obvious. He says avoid passenger announcements when you're right there at the lineup point, unless there's a queue of planes ahead. Why is that so critical?
Yeah, this is pure defensive flying. He points out that a surprising number of runway incursions planes ending up on the runway when they shouldn't happened because the captain was busy on the PA.
Oh.
And the first officer maybe misheard an ATC call. Result, they line up by mistake. It's a totally avoidable risk. Just, focus on the flying at that critical point.
Makes perfect sense. Stay focused.
And another habit he drills down on, always check the runway holding position markings. It's not just confirming you're at the right runway, but also checking which way you need to turn onto it, confirming the runway heading again. Often those signs also have other quick checks, like Vrgo or DME checks or the takeoff distance available. Just a quick scan, but it builds huge situational awareness.
He even shares a story, doesn't he, about spotting planes on final approach twice, avoiding a potential disaster just by looking.
He does. And it really underscores the habit. You get clear to line up. First, confirm your wake turbulence separation disordered, or tell the tower you need it. Then, before you actually cross that holding point line, you take a proper look down the approach path. Is it clear?
That extra second of vigilance.
That extra second could save everything. It's about making absolutely sure.
Okay, so you cross the line, then what? He mentions the silent check. FAT.
Yeah, the FAT check. Flaps, auto brakes, trim.
Yeah.
This isn't usually a formal read-out-loud procedure, though some airlines might make it one.
Right.
For him, it's that final, personal, silent, mental cross-check after you've crossed the hold line, before you pour on the power. Just confirming the aircraft's configuration one last time yourself.
Got it. Now, this next one's interesting. He's adamant. Never waste any runway space behind you when you line up. Seems basic, but why the strong emphasis?
It's all about stopping distance. Every single foot matters if you have to reject the takeoff.
Especially on a balanced field, right?
Exactly. On a balanced runway, the calculated margins for stopping if you reject right at V1 are minimal. They're based on a lot of assumptions, perfect reaction time, perfect braking. You need every inch you can get.
So, hug the start of the runway.
Pretty much. He acknowledges lineup lines are there, but says pragmatically, you maximize your available pavement, especially in low visibility, where those lines might be harder to follow precisely anyway. Use the space.
Okay. And lining up itself. Any specific habits there?
Yes. Line up precisely on the runway heading. Cross-check it again. Stop the aircraft, don't roll forward, then check the wind direction and strength.
Why the stop?
It gives you that moment. Confirms you're pointed the right way, lets you feel the wind, anticipate the rudder you'll need for any crosswind. This is super critical for low visibility takeoffs, LVTOs, to stay perfectly centered.
He even gets into how you hold the throttles. Thumb and little finger on the auto throttle cutout buttons seems very specific.
It is. And for good reason. It's about tactile feedback and efficient action during a reject.
How so?
If you need to reject, the instinctive reaction is to grip tighter and pull back the throttles. With this grip, that simple action also simultaneously disengages the auto throttle.
Saves a step.
Exactly. Saves a crucial second or two of sequential thinking in a high-stress moment. And holding them centered ensures both engine throttles move together. Obviously, it's different on jets like the A320 with fixed throttle positions during auto thrust, but the principle of efficient, ingrained actions holds true.
And feet position, he quotes directly. Your feet must be UP on the rudder pedals before you initiate takeoff. Why is that so critical?
This is vital. Absolutely vital. It's for two main things. Applying maximum brakes instantly if needed, and maintaining directional control using rudder steering.
Especially with engine issues.
Yes, especially with thrust asymmetry. Like if one engine's putting out more power, or during the initial 2GA power application, feet up means no delay finding the pedals. You can steer and brake immediately. Trying to move your feet up while things are going wrong, you lose time, you might lose control momentarily.
All right.
And there's a related point for some planes like the 737, sliding your feet down slightly, around 90 knots.
Why down then?
To avoid accidentally pushing the tops of the pedals during a high-speed reject, which could disengage the auto brakes just when you need them most, it's about precise control inputs throughout.
Wow, lots of detail. Okay, one more pre-takeoff point. Auto throttle arming. He suggests arming it only when you're fully lined up, even if SOPs say otherwise.
Yeah, it's a strong suggestion based on experience. He knows of at least 2 incidents where someone accidentally hit the TCA buttons before the plane was flown.
When the auto throttle kicked in.
Plane wasn't aligned, resulted in runway excursions. So his defensive habit is get straight, then arm the auto throttle. Prevents that specific error.
Okay, so we're lined up, everything's set, now we're rolling. What checks are critical during the takeoff roll itself?
Key check is acceleration. Around 80 knots on a 737, maybe 100 on an A320. You're not just checking the speed is increasing, but how fast.
How do you judge that? Engine N1s?
N1 tells you the engines are spooling up, but not necessarily how quickly the plane is accelerating. He suggests looking at the speed trend vector on the PFD, that little arrow showing predicted speed in, say, 10 seconds.
Okay.
That gives you a much better feel for actual acceleration. Is it sluggish? Could indicate a problem, maybe even wind shear. It's part of your scan.
And directional control. Obviously important.
Crucial. The habit is to set the right amount of rudder before you even start rolling, anticipating crosswind or other factors. Then you only need small adjustments.
Why is that so important, especially in low vase?
Because if you're constantly making large rudder inputs, swaying side to side, trying to find the center line, and then you lose visual reference in fog, It becomes incredibly hard to know where you are relative to the center line, increases the risk of drifting off the runway. Smooth, minimal inputs are key.
Got it. He also tackles what he calls a great misconception about instrument takeoffs. Says pilots don't really do them under IFR.
Yeah, he's quite clear. Even an LVTO, a low visibility takeoff, is fundamentally visual.
So you can barely see.
But you have to see something. Regulations require a minimum number of centerline lights to be visible. Why? To see and avoid hitting anything else on the runway vehicles, other aircraft. It's happened. So the pilot flying, PF, keeps their eyes outside, focused on the runway lights they can see. Peripheral vision for instruments. If the PF loses the lights in an LVTO, it's the pilot monitoring, PM, who calls out directional corrections based on instruments. But the goal is always to maintain that visual contact with the runway environment. It's not like flying blind on instruments alone.
That clarifies things. Okay, the big decision point. V1, go or no go. Captain Chopra makes a pretty bold statement here. For minor differences in speed from V1, it's better to take off than reject. That sounds risky.
It sounds provocative, yeah. But his argument is rooted in statistics and risk assessment. He strongly believes, historically, more incidents and injuries have resulted from poorly handled, rejected takeoffs than from continuing takeoff, even if something minor pops up right around V1.
Well, why are rejects so dangerous?
Because rejecting at V1, especially on a performance-limited balanced field, is right at the edge. The calculations assume everything works perfectly, brakes, reaction time, runway condition. There's very little margin for error.
Right, I see.
So his point is, a reject is a very critical event in itself.
Yeah.
Best avoided unless absolutely necessary. He advises pilots to really think through their personal V1 decision criteria before they even start the takeoff roll, not just react instinctively in the moment.
Okay, let's say we pass V1, we commit. Now it's time to rotate, to lift off. He warns, deviate and be prepared for the consequences. What's the correct technique he insists on?
He's very precise. At V1, hand comes off the thrust levers.
Right.
Then at VR, the rotation speed, you pull back smoothly, continuously, aiming for about 2 to 3 degrees per second rotation rate. You're pitching towards 15 degrees nose up.
Smooth and continuous.
Key words. Once you're airborne and the runway disappears below, you transition fully to instruments. Fly the flight directors if you have them, or fly pitch attitude to maintain your target speed, typically V2 plus 20 knots, V2 being the takeoff safety speed.
So what's the deviation? What are pilots doing wrong?
He blames what he calls misinformed aircrew banter. This idea floating around that you should rotate really slowly or hesitate, maybe pause at a lower pitch attitude, like 5 or 10 degrees, presumably to avoid a tail strike.
But that's wrong.
Critically wrong, according to him. It undermines the whole safety calculation.
Why? What's the aerodynamic reason his technique is fail-safe?
It's fascinating, actually. As the aircraft rotates upwards, its flight path starts angling up, and it starts climbing at a ground effect. Both these things naturally reduce the wing's angle of attack, the angle the wing meets the air.
Okay.
If you rotate smoothly and continuously toward that 15-degree target, you counteract that reduction, keeping the wing working efficiently. But if you rotate too slowly or hesitate,
the angle of attack drops too much.
Exactly. Performance suffers badly. Your ground roll distance increases massively, potentially eating up all your calculated safety margin. Your initial climb is weaker, and you risk settling back onto the runway, especially if an engine fails right then. It also messes up your obstacle clearance calculations.
And if you hesitate and actually touch back down...
That's the nightmare scenario he describes. You're in a horrible position. Continuing the takeoff might now be unsafe because you've used too much runway. Rejecting it is also unsafe because you're likely past V1 and going too fast.
Wow.
His point is stark. If you do decide to continue after a hesitation or minor touchdown, you must commit fully and apply the correct continuous rotation technique with determination. No half measures.
That's a critical few seconds. Okay, connecting this. What if the worst happens after you're airborne? Engine failure post-liftoff. What are the immediate vital responses he outlines?
Right, the engine failure after V1 scenario. He stresses a few immediate actions that need to be almost reflexive. First, fly the flight directors accurately. Nail them.
Why are the FDs so crucial?
Because they're commanding the precise pitch and heading needed to maintain that critical climb speed, usually V2 to V2 plus 20 knots on one engine. Keep the plane flying safely. He says use both hands if needed for accuracy. It's that important.
Okay, fly the FDs. What else?
Second, apply nose-up trim quickly.
Why trim?
Because when you lose thrust from an engine, especially one slung under the wing, the plane wants to pitch down. Applying nose-up trim helps counteract that, making it much easier for the pilot to maintain the correct pitch attitude without fighting the controls. Reduces workload.
Makes sense.
And third, center the slip indicator, that little ball or trapezoid on the PFD, using rudder. Check it, then smoothly apply rudder towards the side of the slip indicator is moved to bring it back to the center.
Okay.
This gets the plane flying efficiently, minimizing drag from side slip. Interestingly, the rudder you need usually corresponds to the direction the plane might be trying to bank anyway, as you follow the flight director heading command. So these things work together. Fly FT, trim up, step on the rudder to center the ball, rapid succession. Keep wings level.
And gear. Don't
delay getting the landing gear up. Clean up the aircraft. And if you did a special takeoff, maybe unpressurized or with engine bleeds off for performance, remember you need to reconfigure those systems now too.
Right, get back to normal configuration. Wow, that's an incredible amount of detail and ingrained habit needed for just those few minutes of takeoff.
It really is. We've pulled out a lot from just this one chapter, haven't we? It's this mix of technical precision, building discipline habits, and making sound judgments under intense pressure.
Yeah, it really highlights how a pilot's mindset, that fail-safe approach, turns procedures into a resilient safety system.
Exactly. And Captain Chopra's final message in the chapter sums it up. He says, this is all about developing your own fail-safe technique. He wants you, the listener, to think about these issues, mull them over, and build your own disciplined approach.
It's about internalizing it.
Absolutely. Building those fundamental habits that make complexity manageable, especially, when things go sideways.
And we'll leave you with Captain Chopra's powerful closing thought from the chapter. Remember, a takeoff is optional. A landing is mandatory.
Puts it in perspective.
Definitely. Something to reflect on. Think about these principles: the preparation, the anticipation, the ingrained habits, the decisive action. How can that idea of fail-safe thinking apply to the complex challenges you face, whether it's at work or in life generally? That discipline approach is pretty universal.